I don't look at these ahead of the time, by the way, but, well, sometimes I do. Mostly it's just helpful to have them here because it's a lot easier to send long, complicated questions by email than it is to type them in at the time of group. So, this says, my husband and I have been reading your Real Love and Marriage book. In the book, it talks about how the wife can give the gift of making love to her husband more often. And let me emphasize that I don't make that suggestion just to women. I happen to make that to a particular couple where she was withholding sex as a way of not being loving, and to him, I was making the suggestion that he not demand sex as often because that was his way of not being loving. So it depends on the couple. I've been married for a while, and pretty much from day one, my husband has not been interested in having sex. We decided not to have sex before marriage, but we had long talks before we got married about how often we would like to have sex when we did get married. And we came to the conclusion of 3 to 4 times a week. I guess it's like deciding how much you want to eat when you go to the grocery store when you're hungry. He seemed really excited about how many times we decided on, and was even hoping that after I had sex, apparently she hadn't before she was married, that I would want it more often. While on our honeymoon, he just seemed to lose interest. I thought he was just being mindful of me, but as time has gone on, I realized that he doesn't have much interest in having sex at all. Even after reading Real Love and Marriage, he still will not talk to me about it. He's gone to a doctor and everything physically checks out fine. I still would like to make love more often, but it's more important for him to feel that I love him, not just want something from him. So what you're getting is really a woman asking the kind of question that usually the men ask. Many women, by the way, are almost like embarrassed to ask this question because they feel like, well, gee, this is usually the men who want more sex in a relationship. We're going to get to this in a second. I'm trying not to take it personal, but I wonder if my weight, which is like 40 pounds overweight, and has been since long before we got married, is a turnoff to him. Every time I talk about going on a diet and losing weight, though, he starts bringing home my favorite fast food or taking me out for ice cream. So that's confusing to her. So how can I love and support him and let go of my feelings of not being enough? So for one thing, this kind of addresses a misconception that it's just that men and women seem to believe that it's always men who want more sex in a relationship, when that is not the case. In fact, a recent study that I looked at indicated that the ratio is now only 2 to 1, meaning that in couples who've been married for, I can't remember the period of time, but established married couples, 5 years or more. I'm making that part up because I can't remember the number. The men who want more sex in the relationship outnumber the women only 2 to 1. So it's about 65% men that want more sex, and 35% of the time that there's one partner that wants more. It's her. So it's very common that it's the women, and the women talk about it less. For some reason, it's okay for a guy to want sex a lot, and it's less okay for women to want sex. So in the first place, it sounds like it's a subject that you treat like some sort of taboo, something that you don't talk about, and that really contributes to the subject not getting addressed. So I recommend that at some point you set aside some time when you say, there's something I'd like to talk to you about, sometime that's not associated with some sexual encounter or rejection or anything. Just some time when you're sitting down and talking, and you say, I want to talk about sex in our marriage. And you need to make it really plain right from the outset that you don't want to change anything, that the purpose of this conversation is to learn more about him. So you first say, I feel stupid. I have noticed that, at one point we talked about how we had planned on having sex in our marriage 3 to 4 times a week, and we don't, and I'm not criticizing that. So pay attention to what I just said. I'm not criticizing that. Because among guys, if you don't want to have sex really often, then among guys it's like there's something wrong with you. If you're in a group of women and a woman says, I just don't want to have sex all that often, then the other women will go, yeah, I understand. Yeah, oh, here, come, let me put my arm around you and give you a little hug. If you're in a group of guys and you say, I just don't want to have sex that often, they look at you like, so what, did you lose a testicle in a war? What's wrong with you? They figure there's something wrong. So see the difference? It's pretty huge. It's okay to not want sex as a woman. It is not okay to not want sex as a man. That's part of what you do as a guy. You have sex with women as you maraud their villages, and you drink beer. So if you approach him with the attitude that there's something wrong with his not wanting to have sex, this conversation is going to go really badly. No kidding. Because he's going to feel accused. He's going to feel attacked. Like he's half a man. Like, what is wrong with you? You can't even think I'm making this stuff up? I'm not. He can't even take care of the needs of his woman. This is how he's going to take this. Men take this pretty seriously. I mean, they get together and they brag about their libidos, how they want more, whether they want more or not, because it makes them look like the bigger bull in the pasture, see? A lot of it's a lie. But you got to understand this before you have this conversation with him, that it's a manly thing. So you're going to say to him, what I care about here is in you being happier, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do later. But tell me what's going on with you. Is it that you just don't have an interest in sex? Is it that you feel discouraged? You feel depressed overall about life? Is it that you don't like the way I look? If there's something like, I want to know what it is. Because if it turns out that, for example, I need to lose 20 pounds, maybe that would be a motivation for me to do that. Yeah, I know, there's imitation love in there. But now you're talking. So all you're doing is gathering information at this point. And it's really danged important that you gather the information. It may turn out, for example, some guys don't have sex because they're embarrassed to have their partners see them naked. Women think that's only a woman thing. Women have this thing that all the little sexual inadequacy and fears and so on are all women problems. And they're not. Sex is a frightening deal for a lot of guys. Impotence has been shown in a huge proportion of cases to be an emotional thing. Guys feel like they're on the performance block. You have to perform well, you have to do well, you have to like it, you have to do it well and often and long and be a great sexual athlete, or you must be kind of like a little girly man. And let me tell you, guys don't want to be referred to as a little girly man. I'll clue you in on that. So there could be oodles of reasons that he doesn't want to talk about this. You got to really help allay his fears. I want you to notice how, casually I'm talking about it. You're going to say, I just want to learn the reason why. If you approach it in a sort of, if you do, and this is a big mistake. If you do it like this, there's a subject I want to talk about, and I know it's difficult for you. Do you see how we're doomed already? Because what I'm saying already is there's something wrong with you. We don't mean to, but if you preface a discussion too much, then you're already saying that there's a defect in your partner. No, just to say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about a subject that I've been thinking about, poof, and get into it. And see if you can figure out what it is. It's an opportunity to love him unconditionally. It's not about the sex. So there's two parts to this. And they have to be separate. They have to be separate conversations. So the first part is, why is it that he's not enjoying sex? And the second part is, now, if you, after learning, let's say that he doesn't like having sex because, who cares? It's just, he just doesn't have an interest. or you can't figure out the reason. Doesn't matter what the reason is. He doesn't know. He just doesn't. The second part of this conversation has to take place on another occasion, another time, and it's an entirely separate question. If you blend these two questions, you're dead. The next part is, okay, now I get it that you don't enjoy sex as much as I do, but I would still like to have sex more often than we're having it now. Now, is that okay for you to want? Yeah. When my kids come over, like at Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, invariably some kid or grandchild or somebody comes up and says, Grandpa or Dad, or do you want to blank? Do you want to play a game of whatever it is? Do you want to play a video game? Well, no, probably not. Or I probably would be. If I really wanted to do it badly, I'd probably already be doing it. So it's not like I'm not really dying to do that event, but because somebody I care about does want to do it, and because it requires two people, I'm willing to. See this? And we got to quit treating sex like it's some separate subject in life. Oh, we can't bring up sex. Can't ask your partner for sex. It's a horrifying misconception, and it's usually the other way around. In this case, the woman is asking. But women have this misconception that somehow that if they give sex, they're giving something. They're being violated in some way. And that men are getting something. Good grief. I understand where it comes from. But in real love, that doesn't exist. Sex is just one way that you communicate affection, one of hundreds of ways. And so you say to your partner, I get that you don't enjoy sex as much as I do, and you don't have to enjoy it as much as I do. Just like you don't have to like chocolate cake the same as much as I do. So what? We all get to have our own preferences about sex or anything else. But I would like to have it more often than we're having it now. So would you be willing to have sex more often with me? Just like when my kids say, Dad, will you come play a game of pool? Sure. Well, on my own, when my kids aren't around, do you think I play pool? No. Think I play video games? No. Do you think I play Scrabble by myself? No. But when they're around, I do all kinds of stuff that I wouldn't normally because they want to. And because they want to, I'm genuinely interested in it. This is important. And so you say to him, so would you be willing to, and here's where you have to be more specific. If you just say, I'd like to have sex, this phrase will kill you, more often. It hangs over your partner like a perpetual axe of judgment. It's always there. When is more often ever satisfied? He's always being judged. It's never sufficient. And so you need to tell him what more often looks like. Somehow we're like afraid we're going to get rid of the spontaneity in the thing. Well, if you're having sex none, that pretty much gets rid of the spontaneity, doesn't it? So what you need to say is, I'd like to have sex once a week. Twice a week. You pick. Pick what you'd like. And then you say, would you be willing to do that with me? Just like you'd say, would you be willing to go out to a restaurant with me? Would you be willing to play ping pong? Would you be whatever? And he says, okay, all right. Oh, don't leave the blank. Don't leave it blank. This sounds silly, but it isn't. I've done this with many couples. So then you say, all right, so how about Tuesdays? Because otherwise what will happen is once a week's going to turn right back into your never. Because he's not going to generate it. And then he's going to feel constantly pressured that you're going to come and approach. No, let's get rid of this whole push-pull, surprise, avoidance, who's going to ask. Don't do that. So how about Tuesdays? How about Tuesdays after dinner? whatever it takes so that you get what you're looking for. And he may never enjoy it as much as you. Don't require that of him. He's a different person than you are. Let it be. So first find out why, and then ask for what you want. And quit fooling around. Or actually, in this case, be more fooling around. But quit fooling around with finding out what you need to know. Here's somebody who says men also won't investigate if there's a medical problem. This man already did, apparently. He did go to a doctor. Hypothyroidism, low testosterone levels, blah, blah, blah. Why would men resist finding out if there's a physical reason which might be easily addressed? Oh, because then you're not a man. I mean, men drink beer and scratch their balls and have sex. That's what men do. And so even if there's a medical reason, you don't get it. That in the man club, you don't get to have a doctor's note that says, oh, Greg's going to come to the man club, but he's only half a man, so it's okay. That's not okay at the man club. No, you really have to show up as a man. No joke. Silly, ridiculous, but that's how we're trained as guys. From the time we were on the playground at recess playing kickball. You think I'm making this stuff up, ladies? Ask your husbands if I am. And it's ridiculous. I'm not saying I'm agreeing with it, but it's true. Then somebody says, what if it is a matter of a person's weight, which may be unappealing? Does that mean that it's seeking imitation love as some physical aspect of our partner isn't appealing? Yeah, it does mean it's imitation love. And you know what? Welcome to life. If it turns out that if your partner lost 10 pounds, that would make all the difference in the world in your sexual relationship, and your partner's willing to lose 10 pounds, well then, you know what? We ain't perfectly loving. And your partner may be willing to say, all right, I'd be willing to lose 10 pounds if that made a difference. Is that partly imitation? Yeah. But would you all please, wherever you are, raise your hands if you've managed to reach real love nirvana in your relationship? You know, we're still in a place where we enjoy imitation love. Again, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not recommending it. It's not something that I look for in a relationship, but some people need that. And I'm going, okay, you just need to be honest about it. Just tell the truth about it. I still need a little imitation love here. There we go. Now we know. Okay. Instead of lying about it. That's terrible, lying about it. Question. I love what you just said. Oh, well then I love you too. If you preface a subject too much, you're already saying there's a defect in your partner. Yeah. I've been trying to apply that with my kids. I know that I've taught them to be afraid by making the subject scary before I even discuss it with them. Oh, I watch this happen all the time. I watch parents, see, I was a surgeon for 20 years, and so I would watch parents bring their children into the exam room, or I worked in I also worked in emergency rooms for 6 years. And if a parent came in and said, oh, don't worry, it's not going to hurt. We were doomed. You had to call in a regiment of Marines to hold this kid down. Because the parent, by offering too much reassurance, too much quelling of fear, actually increases the fear. So she continues. My apology. I interrupted. So in regard to the kids, I could say, if I preface the subject too much, I'm already saying there's a reason for them to be afraid of the subject. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, in fact, if somebody starts off a subject saying, okay, now, I want to talk about something here we have nothing to be afraid of. If we didn't, then why would you be bringing it up? It's great to know that I don't have to teach them how to be afraid of the world. Yeah, even difficult things can be, as you say, no big deal. That's right. One thing that I really enjoyed doing was, when I worked in emergency rooms and in other situations like that, was the more emergent the situation, the bigger the crisis, the calmer I became. And the more calm you become, the more calm the people around you become. It It's infectious. Whereas you would get the bonehead ER doctors and surgeons who go, okay, we got to panic. Oh, well, now everybody around you is going to panic too. And now they're going to make more mistakes and make your life more difficult. Not a good move. Woman here says, so what happens if he says it's not okay? So back to the sex. And so you go to your partner and you say, okay, so I get that you don't enjoy sex as much, but I would still like to have sex. Would you be willing to have sex with me once a week? And he says, no. Then you're going to have to explore how you're going to get your sexual needs met. And you're going to have to explore that with your partner. So you say, all right, so I get that you're not willing to have what we have in the past called sex, whatever that is. However many minutes he has associated with having sex, whatever activities he has called having sex, I get that you're not willing to do that once a week. So would you, oh, the combinations are endless, are they not? You're not stupid. Do I have to spell this all out? Would you be willing to do that every other week? Would you be willing to do something shorter, quicker, faster, easier, something every other week in between? There are hundreds of variations on sex. Longer, intermediate, shorter, what? Come on, use a little creativity and say to your partner, all right, so let's come up with something you'd be willing to participate in. What would you be willing to do? But you're going to have to offer the variations. Because if your partner is already reluctant and you say, okay, so what are you willing to do? You know what the answer you're going to hear is? 3 words, guarantee I can tell you what they're going to be right now. I don't know. So you need to go in prepared or you're going to hear, I don't know, and you're going to end up with nothing. So you need to do some thinking ahead of time. Okay. Now, let's see. Next question. Nice questions. Can you discuss the benefits of making the primary decision, as we discussed in the Real Love and Marriage book on page 165, and the far-reaching consequences of making this decision? Why is making the primary decision so important? First, what's the primary decision? I've just noticed over years and years of talking to people in marriage that what they do is they come to each individual little circumstance in their life and they decide, so what am I going to do with my partner in this situation? What am I going to do in that situation? What am I going to do while we're playing tennis? What am I going to do while we're playing tennis in the rain? What am I going to... Do you see how difficult this gets? When you're having to make a decision about every little variation on what am I going to do when my partner blank, there are thousands of possibilities. Everything becomes infinitely easier when you build your house of decisions based on a foundation of the primary decision, which is, am I going to make my partner first in my life? Now, depending on your spiritual orientation, it may be God. I'm not getting into that. Am I going to make my partner the first person in my life? So I'm not going to play that other thing with you. But am I willing to make my partner first as far as people go? Because if you do that, it makes all the other decisions easier. It's kind of like watching somebody put up a house on the beach. Let's see, should I do the windows first? Should I do the south wall, the north wall, the roof? If you're not going to lay a foundation on concrete on the beach, or up on stilts, or whatever, it doesn't matter what all the rest of your decisions are. If you don't make the primary decision first, all your other decisions are going to wash away when the tide comes in. So that's how important the primary decision is. This question continues. It's like people are making a deliberate choice to not be happy in their marriage when they fail to put their spouse first in their lives. Or is it because they enjoy milking imitation love from dependent, emotionally immature people, like children and grandchildren, who are also eager and very willing to trade in the only kind of love they know, which is conditional love? That is the answer. Nobody makes a conscious decision to be miserable. I hear that from people and go, oh, he's decided to be miserable. No, nobody does that. When you're confronted with a bowl of ice cream or a bowl of dog poop, nobody says, I'll have the poop. They just don't realize that the choices that are available to them. And so people don't decide they're not going to be happy. They just have gotten so hooked on the addiction of imitation love from every little trader, that's with a D, T-R-A-D-E-R, who goes by, that they can't conceive of what sobriety from imitation love is like. Now, pay attention, because there are still some people out there who think, well, but, because, for example, I've known couples who get married and they already have, for example, children between them. She has children, he has children. They might have a grandchild or two, or who cares? They have other people in their lives. And they get together and they argue constantly about who are we going to place first. Well, but, I can't do something with you, because I have my children to think of first. Well, because I have you're dead. You're dead. You just as well not have gotten married. Why? Because you haven't laid a foundation. What you're not getting is you're still a drunk. You're still an addict. You're still addicted to the conditional approval. Listen to how it goes. It's not just that they choose to love these people, they're afraid not to. It's all based on fear. It's the trading of imitation love. It is an addiction. They can't stop themselves. And until you stop yourself long enough from pleasing the people around you and from trading an imitation love, you can't know what it's like to be sober. I was addicted for years and years to narcotics. And I can tell you that what happens is when the pain gets bad, you immediately take the narcotics. And you go, I know I need to quit. And then when the pain starts to get bad, you take the narcotics again. You can't ever get out of that until you just quit. Till you stop cold completely and quit opting for the easy way out of your pain. And that's what these partners are doing in their relationship. Instead of working it out together, where they learn to unconditionally love each other, which is the harder choice and the right choice. It's not just some other choice. It's not like Greg Bear's choice. It's not like, well, it's just an optional plan. No, it's the right choice. How do I know that? Because everything that you perfect together from the primary decision, that the two of you come together and learn to be, as you learn to be more unconditionally loving, everybody else in your life will benefit. Whereas if you decide you're going to please everybody else and then eventually get to the primary partner in your life, who are you kidding? It's never going to work out like that. It's like deciding that you're going to do everything else in your life and eventually you're going to work to become physically fit, or eventually you're going to work on your mind. Eventually, no, you're not. No, you're going to end up an empty hulk, an empty husk of a person, used up by life. And in this case, used up by the people around you. You have to make the primary decision first. It's not just another way. It's the way. Then the two of you will synergistically be able to add to each other's love. You'll be able together as a partnership to better love all the people around you. Each of you will add to each other's individual ability to love the people around you. When you go the primary decision way, everybody wins. When you decide to do it not the primary decision way and just please people as they come, you make people happy for a minute or two, but I call it the fireman approach. I talked to somebody recently and said, "Oh, so you've grown up to be a fireman." She said, "What? You're just a fireman. You put out fires. That's all you do." And meanwhile, everything burns down around you. And you don't succeed in building anything. See, all we do is try to put out every little fire. Somebody whimpers, "Oh, my grandchild needs me." And we go and we put out that little fire. So a child complains. We go put out that little fire. And oh, we feel so important, don't we, for a brief little period of time. It makes us feel all valued. And, oh, I can't spend time with you, my primary partner, because these other people need me. It is an illusion. And you will die. And you're hurting those other people. No, you know what? You're not nearly as indispensable as you think. You need to build up the relationship with your primary partner first, then learn how to give healthy love in a way that builds instead of just putting out fires. Just putting out fires doesn't build a thing. It's not healthy for you, and it's not healthy for the people around you. You're teaching them terrible things. Let's see. Workplace issue. Our every other week marketing meeting has deteriorated into a bitch session where everybody simply complains about pay, hours, etc. The owner is never present to regulate the marketing meeting. How can I, as the office manager, keep our meetings on track? Oh, it's 6 letters long, agenda. We don't run meetings without them. You tell people we're going to cover in the office meeting, all we're going to cover is things that are on the agenda. And when I have a meeting and people speak up, I say, "I'm sorry, was that on the agenda?" Now, you can speak if you have a question about something that was on the agenda, or if something, came up last night. But if you're just going to complain, then we'd like you to study that and present that at the next meeting as an agenda item. And then we will discuss. And by the way, you never get to complain about anything unless you have a proposed solution that is better than what is being done now. Otherwise, you get to shut up. Otherwise, why should we listen to you complain? It's like when I listen to people complain about politics. "Oh, I don't like Bush." And I'm going, okay, well, I'm fascinated to hear that. And you would do this better how? You're going to take this unbelievably complicated problem that has just consumed $15 billion, over the last 3 years, and that has just mind-numbingly twisted a Congress of, 500 men and women into knots, and you don't like it. Wow. Well, that didn't take any effort to say. I don't like it. I can train a parrot to do that. But do you have a proposed solution that's better? No? Then be quiet. So that's what meetings are about. Meetings are about identifying problems, coming up with solutions, and then we move forward. And if you can't propose a solution, don't speak. We don't have time to listen to complaining. I have a friend who I have spent, the other obvious solution is to read the Real Love in the Workplace book. Duh. It'll tell you how to do the whole thing. I have a friend who I have spent a lot of time with over the last 2 years. We're both single. I wanted her to be my sweetheart, but she has insisted on being just a friend. But we see each other at least once a week, and often, more often than that. And we talk almost every day. Sounds like a friend. Now I find myself afraid that if she finds a boyfriend, she will drop me entirely. So I feel like I'm setting myself up to be hurt. Should I just keep our time limited so I won't be attached? No. Are you kidding? That's like, well, if I'm eating an ice cream cone, I better not eat the whole thing because I might like it too much. I might become attached to the taste of ice cream. No. If you're enjoying the time you spend with her and you're clear that you're not going to be more than just friends, then enjoy every second you have with that person. If you use this reasoning, then what you'd say is, you know, all these people that I talk to every day, one of these days they're going to die. And if I'm attached to them, then it's going to really bother me when they die. So my solution is going to be, I won't talk to any of them. See? No. Enjoy every second of your life. Every minute you get to spend with her, enjoy it. And if someday she finds a partner and spends less time with you, then that's what life does. It changes, doesn't it? But don't set yourself up for that happening now. This is a tough question for me to ask. Not so much tough for us to hear. I don't know if anyone else who hasn't had an eating disorder will understand. I had anorexia and then bulimia for 10 years and have been in recovery from that for 21 years. Yet food is still a charged issue for me. I'll bet. Addictions are addictions, by the way. You're addicted to drugs, alcohol, sex, food, whatever. It's pretty much the same. The variation from one addiction to another is amazingly little. My 11-year-old asked to eat some leftover pizza that I had brought home from my mom's. He had eaten 5 pieces, yet I prefer not to stuff myself and just save my leftovers for later. I didn't want to give up my pizza, and he kept harassing me and fighting me about it. 11-year-olds do that. Because I still have food issues, I end up feeling angry and guilty at the same time. Another member asks why I can't just give him the pizza, and yet that feels really difficult to me. And I don't think I should have to give up my leftovers to him just because he's hassling me. What do you suggest? I realize that my food issues complicate this answer. Yeah, your food issues here are a distraction. It's like a red herring, like set aside the food issue. The real issue here, whenever you're dealing with a child, is what are you teaching the kid, really? Then you can deal with the little food issue on your own later. But the child comes to you, and as soon as the child says, I want a thing, and you decide, this time I want the thing. Now you're done. Now, from that point on, the child needs to learn this lesson just for the lesson of the answer isn't always yes. It doesn't matter now whether you can do without the food or not. The food isn't the issue. The issue now is the kid. So now, if the kid hassles you and you give the child the food, what lesson did you just teach the child? Beautifully teach the child. That if you whine long enough and act like a victim enough, then the world will give you what you want. Oh, no. Now, you have to be sure that you're not just, giving flippant answers, but we taught this to our kids real early in life. They would ask for something. You think about it. You don't just say no because you're the dad, because you're in the bigger position. But if you say no, and then they whine, you say, what is that noise? It is like the buzzing of flies to me. And eventually your kids catch on that they can either keep whining and make themselves miserable and not get what they're asking for, or they can stop whining and not get what they're asking for. The only reason a child keeps whining is that you have taught the child that whining gets them what they want. Period. How do I know this? Because children whose parents don't give in to whining, their children don't whine, like ever, because the kids don't get anything from it. Children and adults don't keep up behaviors that aren't productive. Period. They don't. There's no reason to. So you say to the kid, I know you want the pizza, but I'm going to be having this piece, and I'm going to save it for tomorrow, and so you can have whatever else you want. I want the pizza. Are you deaf, or was some part of that complicated for you? So now you have a choice. Now you can stay up and whine. You can stay up and not whine, or you can go to bed and whine all you want, because it is annoying my ears. You just don't do it. So no, you don't have to put up with that. And your food issue is a secondary thing. Regarding the primary decision, it's really a matter of exercising faith that it will all work out if we place the primary partner first and practice loving each other. So, if I've been in fear about making my partner primary, but I believe and logically understand what you said about trading imitation and being a fireman, I should practice setting aside my fear and having faith. Is that accurate? Yes. Is there a way I can do this that mitigates my fears? It feels like walking in the dark. Yes. That's why they call it faith. Really. If it were something else, they would call it something else. We all want to practice faith without practicing faith. We want to practice the kind of faith where you don't ever have to walk in the dark. Well, then it's not faith anymore, see? And you can't grow without faith. How do you ever grow and learn to do something different? How do you ever change without at some point walking in the dark? It's just flat not possible. And we want to grow without discomfort. Well, good luck. Really. It's like patients that used to come to me and they'd say, so I want this problem solved. And I'd say, cool. And so I'd tell them, so here's what we need to do. We need to operate on you. And they'd say, no, I want you to solve the problem without the surgery. And I say, well, of course, this was a guy I knew. I wouldn't do this with every patient. So I reached over into the drawer and I threw him a phone book. And I said, it's under M. He said, what do you mean? I said, M for McDonald's. Go to McDonald's. They take short orders, but I don't. I mean, if you want the solution that I've proposed, you have to do what I'm suggesting. If you want the way that leads to happiness, you have to actually follow the path that leads to happiness. It's not some arbitrary path that was laid down. These are immutable laws. No kidding. Just like the law of gravity. The law of happiness requires that we take certain steps to get there. Really. And we don't get to shortcut them. And some of the steps are unfamiliar to us, which requires that we take them in faith, which is scary. I get it. But more scary is not taking them and staying the same and staying miserable. So, yuck. Who wants to do that? I don't. And yet, sometimes I apparently do, because I do stay the same and I'm stupid. It's happened more than once, apparently. Of the choices, live with it and like it, live with it and hate it, or leave it. Is it always that I'm not loving enough is the truth when I choose to leave it? Because there's some examples in the Real Love book where I say that when we choose to leave, for example, leave a marriage, that we need to leave with the attitude that we were not loving enough. And the reason I recommend that is that it's infinitely more conducive to our learning loving than our leaving the marriage saying it was the other person's fault. Now, is it possible for us to make the choice, leave it, and not have it be that it was because we weren't loving enough? Yeah, that's possible. For example, she says, my husband and I are friends with a couple and have been for many years. We all used to attend the same church, but they became offended and they left the church. And anyway, eventually they came back and they play cards with us every week. The husband of the couple is annoying beyond words. Probably a lot of you know him. Nothing is ever right or enough for him. It's either too cold or too hot or the food is bad, whatever. He comes in the house and he tells me how many lights I should have on. Yeah, I know people like that. Just to put the icing on the cake with my description so you get a picture, recently he insulted his wife in our presence while we were there. He corrected her vehemently, beginning with something to the effect of, I've had enough of you talking to me like this. And last week, he indirectly insulted my religion and called someone that I care about crazy. So apparently this guy is fairly abrasive. He became argumentative when I tried to point out what was being said about whatever. And I just shut up. But something in me had had enough. And I made a decision that I was not going to play cards with them anymore. Mind you, she's been doing this with them as a couple for years. I keep saying that if I were loving enough, I could remain in a relationship with him. But truthfully, I feel like I am loving enough. And I just don't want to spend my time with someone who is not interested in anything but being right. That's it. And I agree with you. My suggestion to people is that when we leave a relationship of any kind, especially a marriage, that the first person that we look to for whether we judge whether there's enough love in the relationship always be us. And that if we leave a relationship in anger, that was my primary point in the book, if we leave it in anger, it is because we were not loving enough. Period. It's our fault. Every time. But are there cases where you can just leave a relationship and still be loving? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, I would be obligated to participate in every relationship that everybody ever wanted to have with me to the degree that they chose to have it. Do you see how nutty that would become before long at all? People would be saying, well, this is the amount of time I require from you. Well, you know, I choose not to spend that much time with you. Is it because I'm not loving enough? Well, sometimes it might be. But to follow this conversation here, no, 99% of the time it's not. It's because I choose to spend my time with the people that, for reasons that I get to pick, I feel are going to I'm going to get the most out of, and that are going to get the most out of me. It's both. So there are quite a few people in my life that I spend time with because I feel like I can do a lot of good in their lives. There are people that I spend time with in my life that I feel like I get something out of it also, which is different than saying I get something in return. And then there are some people who I used to return all my phone calls. I used to return all my emails. I can't do that anymore. There are too many people's phone calls and emails to return. And there's some old relationships that I've just dropped because I don't get anything out of it. They don't feel any love from it. They have no desire to change their lives or improve or grow in any way. And sometimes it just isn't fun. Whatever reason, I get to choose. I get to make that choice. So in your case, is it fun to be around this guy anymore? No. Is he getting any feeling of being unconditionally loved? Zero. Are you growing in your ability to be unconditionally loving when you're around him? No. So the math on this is pretty easy. 0 fun, 0 growing, 0 giving, 0 learning on his part, 0 plus 0 plus. This would be a 0 relationship. That doesn't make him a 0 person. Doesn't make him not worthwhile. Doesn't make him not worth loving. But I wouldn't choose to be around him either. So yeah, sometimes you do get to just walk away just because, you know, you don't have infinite time in your life. It's pretty much simple. I had a great week here, it says, of feeling and acting loving with my family before the pizza incident. Ruined everything. After committing to my real love group that I was going to be quiet this week no matter what. That's a very sharp observation. Another member then commented that I could imagine that I had duct tape on my mouth, and that really stuck with me. I was amazed at how well that worked and how easy it was to be and feel loving. Good for you. I can still remember what it felt like the first few groups that I attended back in recovery long ago when I decided I wasn't going to speak. I had always lived under the assumption that any particular group that I was in couldn't possibly live without hearing my opinion. And I learned that, they did just fine. And so for easily a year or so, I didn't speak anywhere I went, at any group of any kind. I didn't know anything. And I discovered that I was learning all kinds of stuff. Follow-up. I still feel selfish for not giving my son the pizza. Is it selfish to want to eat my own leftovers? Oh, woman, we got to work with you. My narcissistic mother always called me selfish for wanting to have a life of my own and not constantly meeting her needs. Oh, so being selfish is a big issue for me. So you got to pay attention to this. Who are the people who are teaching you what the definition of selfish was? Selfish people who are trying to get you to do what they wanted. And so they defined selfish as anything that wasn't what they wanted. Well, but see, they happen to be the gods of your life at the time. When you're 6 years old and your mother tells you that something is selfish, you don't have a philosophical discussion with your mother at age 6 about the nature of selfishness. No, you believe her. And so you believed her when you made choices on your own that didn't satisfy her. You believed her when she said, you are selfish. Well, no, she was wrong. We get to make our own choices. Now, this will help you with the guilt. So, listen to this carefully. If you give in to your son each time he asks for something like a piece of pizza or whatever, you're teaching him to be selfish. You're teaching him to be a victim. So it's actually more loving, ironically, for us to teach our children the importance of hearing no. Because loving means caring about their happiness. No child can be happy who grows up to be a selfish victim. And I interact with these kids every day. I interact with them while they're teenagers. I interact with these kids after they've grown up to be 50 and 60 years old. And they think that the entire world revolves around them. Every sentence that's spoken, they think it's about them. Everything they hear, they relate it to them. Somebody speaks a sentence, they go, oh, see, let's see, how does that relate to me? Okay, I'm grounded now. I see how it relates to me. They think everything is about them. What you're going to tell him is the piece of pizza has nothing to do with you. It's mine. There. One of the first things that we taught our kids was, for example, kids are taught, if two kids are arguing over a toy, parents will come along and they'll say, well, how come you won't let your little brother have the toy? You have to share. No, actually, he doesn't. Whose toy is it? That was my question. Oh, it's your toy. So if it's Fred's toy, and John wants Fred's toy, you know what? John's going to have to wait for it because it's Fred's toy. And Fred has to be able to exercise his right of choice as to what he's going to do about it. It's pretty simple property law, but it's also about the right, it's also about the law of choice. If people can't make their own independent choices, how will they ever learn to be truly loving? If I tell a child, you have to share, do you think I just taught the child sharing? You think I just taught the child to be loving? All I taught the child was that the child had to submit to my will because I'm bigger. That's all. Just like parents who teach a child, okay, now you have to say thank you. You think you just taught the child gratitude? All you taught the child was obligation and obedience. So we have to be careful about what we teach. And in the case of your child needs to understand that he doesn't run everything. Everything isn't his. And he doesn't get to be selfish all the time. And no, you are not being selfish to teach that. Now, if you become angry while you teach it, you lose. And then you are being selfish, which still doesn't obligate you to give him a piece of pizza. So, simply, last little question. Oh, good. This one person says, thanks for clearing up the leave it option. I feel zero guilt. Good for you. Our being disappointed with our children immediately conveys to them that they are responsible for our happiness. Yes. The instant that we do this to a child, what have we communicated? You made me unhappy. Oh, what a terrible burden to place on a child. Here, my happiness is your responsibility. That's just, it's the worst burden in life you could give to a kid. And as we get wiser, we'll do it less and less. So, wonderful questions, so many that we couldn't handle them all. And we'll see you guys in a week. And in the meantime, we love you. See you then.